Right, so do the thing for the camera. Hello, my name is Nick. I'm conducting this interview on behalf of my online communications class. As we kind of talked about earlier, the purpose of the interview is going to be for me to gain a clear understanding of kind of like having a career in the psychology industry, and more specifically, I don't know if I mentioned this, I don't think I have yet. I just want to ask some questions about kind of the assessments that you do, how you got into that, how it goes, that kind of thing, and then kind of segue into some like general graduate school questions and concerns. You're welcome to pass on any questions that you don't want to answer. And it should take about 15 or 20 minutes.
All right.
Cool.
All right. You said questions about assessments that I do?
Less about like the actual like specific assessments and more like kind of, you know, how you got started. You know, well, I mean, yeah, how did you get into how you got into the practice of doing that? And then a couple other questions about more like the process of it.
As far as, I guess, how I got into doing assessments, and then that's the question, right? Not as much how did I get into doing the assessments, and then are you talking about the therapy as well, just the assessments?
Right now I just kind of focus on the assessments. Like, did you when you went into doing clinical work? Yeah. Did you start like with one or the other, or like?
I started doing clinical work counseling first, and then as you start to do that, sometimes you can get at things, information about the client, different dispositions they may have, different things they may have going on with them. You can get at it quicker with an assessment. You can cover more ground with an assessment. So then you can always come back to the client to ask them, make sure that what the assessment is saying is accurate, and then you can go from there. Because without the assessment, you would just have, you know, your clinical interview. But you could do clinical interviews for a few sessions and still get at some of that information. But if you have an assessment that's research has been done on, it's a pretty valid assessment. They become pretty valuable in the sense of being able to shorten the orientation and psychoeducation time frame of the model. Not that shortening is the most important thing, but you know, anything that can help with that is a good thing. So an assessments play that role.
So like how did you kind of, as far as like and the work that you did with the county, I guess, doing the assessments for sheriffs? So those are like more, that's kind of like more what I'm talking about as far as like assessments in general go, although that first point there.
Okay, so you assessments that are not really connected to any type of mental health work.
Well, just like not specifically connected to like you're gonna then go into like a different kind of therapeutic process. Yeah.
So there are a lot of assessments they can be used and you not connect them to the mental health work that you're going to do, the counseling work, the therapeutic work. I've done those assessments for a couple of different reasons. One is the law enforcement, someone going into law enforcement, just to make sure that they're sound, and a lot of different things. Sound, psychologically sound, personality-wise, just how they approach certain things, and also their adjustment to stress. So those opportunities came about, but they definitely came about after I became familiar with the assessments, and then actually sought that out as far as the law enforcement assessment. I've done assessments as well when people get ready to do surgery, bariatric surgery, lap band, they call it lap band surgery, where they shrink the stomach. I've done assessments for that, just to make sure that person is a good candidate for the type of surgery. Because after that surgery, the lifestyle that they're asked the person to live is pretty demanding. So you want to make sure someone is sound enough to be able to live that life, have that diet lifestyle. That surgery won't work. You can do assessments too for custody, uh, like court stuff. So forensic, I've done that. These are off and on type of assessments. The law enforcement is more of an ongoing assessment that we do. But these two, the bariatric surgery, and anything related to courts and stuff like that, it comes and goes. But yeah. So those assessments, I actually came into doing those assessments after I started my therapy practice. And so sometimes you want to add to your practice, you want to grow the practice, you want to change your pace. And those assessments give you a change of pace.
So like, as far as like the framework goes for like why I'm asking the questions and like kind of what I've pivoted to since we like last talked about what I was thinking about doing. And I'm not gonna go like too far into it because like that's separate than this, but this is for that. So I was kind of wanting, and I kind of mentioned this to you before a little bit, I think, but I was wanting to do like adult ADHD and like child ADHD assessment, and then also doing a little bit of clinical work. Like I'm kind of imagining like a couple days of assessments and then like a day or two of working with that same population.
Yeah.
So like if I was wanting to, you know, do that, what should I be looking for as far as graduate programs go, or like further education? I mean, like,
yeah, I would, especially in the state of Tennessee, they get ready to change some things if they haven't already. So if they do make those changes, you could do the traditional mental health counseling or what we call professional counseling. You could do, if the changes went into place, you could do clinical psychology. And I say that because the change they're getting ready to make was you could get a license through the clinical psychology where you used to. And so you could do that in all those programs. You have a testing class. It talks about testing and how to generally interpret tests. Now, depending on who your professor is and what test they may focus on, they may scratch the surface and focus on a handful. I know in the clinical program at SSU, you take a whole course on MMPI. Now, MMPI is personality test. You're trying to do stuff with ADHD. Actually, it'd be a simpler test. The ADHD type test, much simpler than the MMPI. So as long as you go through one of those graduate programs, I think you learn enough to get started. If you were going to simply focus on that, then I would just recommend too that you would maybe do a continuing education course with seminars on ADHD testing, so then you just learn a little more than what graduate school would teach you. Sometimes they really just truly are teaching you the foundational things to be a mental health professional. And if you want to specialize, then you get certified or you do continuing education.
okay, so to clarify, so what you're saying is I should just go for my PhD for just like a general clinical framework and try and find as much inside that program related to what I'm doing as I can. And then to actually specialize, that happens after I actually get that degree or that doctorate.
Yeah, technically, you could also, if you get a PhD, like you're saying, because I kind of did this, you could make your dissertation topic around what you want to specialize in.
That's yeah.
I did my dissertation topic on trauma because then I felt like I did want to specialize in something. I still treat trauma, and I also developed a trauma assessment. So then I think it's twofold. So then you start the process of becoming a professional as it relates to ADHD testing with your dissertation to be on that. And then you can also start to make your dissertation easier because you're doing something you're very interested in. And it's something you enjoy. So definitely, yes. So you start the basic process and then get specialized after the fact. But you can do things to start that process prior to graduating.
So two follow-up questions from that. The first one being, and I might have lost a little bit when the second one came up. So give me a second to pull it out of there. But okay, never mind. It's gone. So like what kind of I mean, should I look for specifically for like people at schools doing this kind of work or like related work and just kind of try and look for that kind of thing in addition to like other requirements I have, but like as far as looking for a program?
You talk about connecting with people that's doing the work already.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Well, just because like I understand that like for a PhD program, you're working directly under somebody doing research, hopefully related to what they're doing. So I've kind of been told in the past to try and find people who are doing work close enough to my dissertation or what I want to do for my dissertation or for my like career stuff as I can to try and get in early, like you said.
Yeah, I would think most PhD programs you're going to be working on your research. More of the master's degrees, some undergraduate degrees where you're working on the research of professors. When you hit that PhD, you're working on yours, and they're helping you with yours. The other part of that, yes, I think it's great to, if it's a professor or someone in the community at a school that's already doing that type of testing, that you introduce yourself. Maybe they'll let you meet with them from that. Maybe they'll let you see some of the results or talk to you about some of the ins and outs of what they do and different testing that's available out there. And so then hopefully you'll have that person or 2 or 3 people that you can bounce things off of as you start your own journey into doing whatever it is you want to.
Okay, so whoever I work under doesn't have to be doing, I mean, like as related as I can, but like they're just going to be kind of helping. I don't need that, like doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing, like and just be close to it.
So who you work under in the graduate program?
Yeah, like
no,
like
they may be.
Sorry,
they may or may not be doing what you are interested in doing. But sometimes the chips may fall where there's no one on staff that's actually doing the studies that you want to do. Like when I did mine, no one was doing research on developmental trauma. It was something I was interested in, but my mentor helped me to how the best ways to approach that and look at that, ideas as it relates to structuring my research. And so, yeah, but if you happen to have someone that's a faculty member that's actually doing something new or interested in something you're interested in, and it's icing on the cake. But it's not, you're not dead in the water if it's not, because I'm sure they could be helpful in that area. But learning that skill, learning the different types of tests that are out there, you can definitely get that from people who's actually doing it. They might not be doing it to the degree that you want to do it, but at least you see what they're doing. Sometimes you'll find people only using one test that they just happen to use, or maybe the organization they work for only use that one test. You have something that may have an idea about a battery of tests, different age groups. If you're doing ADHD, you do tests that different, usually broke up based on age. So stuff like that. Hope that's answering your question. It is a, I would think while you're in school, you could though. Your main interaction is going to be with your professors. And they'll be helping you develop your research. If you're doing, let's say, a PsyD program where may not do a dissertation, they simply just do the internship, then you might be able to find a hospital or organization or some type of educational entity that does those type of testings, and that's where you do your internship. So then you would be working under someone who actually doing those testing.
Okay.
If it's attached to an internship.
First of all that was perfect. That was exactly that. You laid that out very well for me. I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
That actually took a lot of stress off my shoulders. That makes me feel like I have a lot more flexibility looking for a program than I did before. So that's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That actually reminded me of the thing I was going to ask you, which was your dissertation related to the like assessment that you created? Like, did you create an assessment as your dissertation, or was that a different thing?
It was a different thing, but it was born out of it. So what I learned, because the development of trauma was kind of a new thing, in the sense of trying to get it into the DSM. So the research was geared towards trying to do that. So we were looking at criteria to say, hey, this child has developmental trauma, or this adult has developmental trauma. And so based on what I learned what those criteria were, and basically symptoms, you can call them symptoms or outcomes, that's how I structured the assessment to assess trauma experience and then outcome of trauma experience. And yeah, so it's based on what I learned while I did my dissertation.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. So what what kind of, and this is gonna be kind of general, and I can like more specify if need be, but like what kind of skills, like organizational or like theoretical knowledge or statistics, or like what's helpful if you're wanting to do assessments, make assessments, like kind of, because what you were saying earlier, like trying to design like a battery of assessments is kind of leaning towards what I'm wanting to do. Like I don't actually like the like little like self-report simple ADHD stuff, and I was wanting to look into more like
Well, what I would recommend, well, I think I'm hearing two questions, or I don't know, just figuring out your questions. I'm answering two ways I think I'm hearing it. One is, if you're trying to develop your own test, yeah, you need to have some knowledge of research methods and statistics. You can get help with that. You know, once you get into academia, you run into people who they major in statistics. That's their major is quantitative psychology or something. So you can always pull somebody in to help you with that just to do those statistics, just to make sure what items need to come out, what items need to stay in that assessment. So yeah, you need some research methods and some quantitative knowledge. If you're trying to just figure out what my model is going to look like, and my process is going to look like when I'm testing people. So you may have an ADHD test that you may have one or two that you give. I would recommend also having some trauma assessment that you do. There's one called ACE. I think it's assessing assessing childhood events or something like that. Anyway, so then what you do then, you can, not only are you measuring for ADHD, but you also can rule out, sometimes trauma in children looks like ADHD was trauma that they've experienced. And so in some ways you can treat it the same as far as medication goes, but if it's treatment that's therapeutic, talk counseling, person to person type of thing, that's different. So yeah, so you want to have a battery of tests, and there are a few. I can't remember the names. I was looking this up actually a couple months ago for Emily, and I found 3 pretty good ADHD tests. But if I was doing that, I would probably do those 3, and then probably do short trauma assessment, and then from that, be able to put a report together on what the testing says and recommendations uh, from that point of view.
Yeah, that was perfect. I didn't, it kind of morphed into two questions mid question because some gears turned for me as I was like
Oh, that's fine.
saying it.
Yeah.
So sorry for that being a little bit confusing, but yeah, that was perfect actually.
Not confusing, just I guess I'm a decent listener, so I just want to make sure I answer whatever you're asking. So
I appreciate that a lot actually. That's useful, especially for the way I talk. So I wrote this to be like way more linear than it has been, but like just because the questions have flown in different directions, it's been hard to keep it that way. But I'm gonna start closing the funnel a little bit. In the sense of going back to graduate school, more general question: what would it look like for somebody coming out of graduate school and like with their eye eventually on private practice, but like understanding there's probably like a road in between those two things? What kind of things would someone like me want to be looking for, kind of making that transition?
There possibly could be a road between the two. So you can imagine the different pathways. You say I haven't thought about it, but you could come out of grad school, and I'm sure someone could go straight into trying to do their own practice. It might be the most less collaborative way, less maybe a way that too where your learning curve is longer. I think it would be great if you had a combination, two different ways. You could have a combination of, yeah, I'm doing my own on the side, but I'm also working with someone. Or you could just start off working with someone and then eventually do your own. When I say working with someone, I would think it would be some entity or an agency or organization who did some type of educational work. They got some learning centers that's, cropping up. And I would think they would do things like that. Maybe even also work as a in the school district as like a school psychologist, so to speak, where they do those testings. You can work. Some nonprofit organizations may offer that as well. You can find some of those. You might even can find a private practice that works with children that may want to do some of that testing, and you could volunteer, or you could work part-time, or you could work full-time at that place, offer that testing, and then eventually just do your own as you learn and figure out how you're going to do it and structure your clientele that you want to charge. So I would think it'd be great to be connected with something with an active goal of branching out on.
Cool. That was kind of what I was thinking, was because I didn't want to just like try and dive in by myself. So I just didn't feel like that would be like a good idea really for anybody. I know my mom actually mentioned that there's someone she knows that was a school psychologist, but then moved into there's like this company around here that does just assessments, and basically it's like it's kind of like Uber, but like for psychologists, in the sense that like you're there and then they just kind of pop up on boards, and then you can just take them or not take them if you want. So you're not like scheduled per se. You just pick up assessments when you want to and when they need them.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know what organization that is, but that's if someone knows how to, that's a unique way, good way, I think, too, to get people in and not having to wait too long. Yeah, it's put them in a, like you said, a system of prompts. Mental health professionals let them know that someone's needing testing. Yeah, I don't know who that is, but
I can't remember the name of the group either. I need to ask her about it. So yeah, I guess I could just, yeah, okay. So options, basically it sounds like it's pretty flexible. It also kind of sounds like it's going to be something that happens like somewhat organically. Like I'm just gonna kind of like, as I'm going, just like
yeah, you'll get
find
a
out
feel
about
on what.
things where I'm like, oh, I want to go that way.
Yeah, I want to do this. I want to do that. Nah, I don't. If you're just if you're thinking about your own practice, your own business, then yeah, it is a creative journey. And you create what best fits you, but also serves the community you're trying to serve, the group of people you're trying to serve. So the combination of, I'm sure Walmart, Exxon, I'm sure they had a vision, or at least a starting vision, and then as they went after that, they tweaked whatever it needs to tweak to fit what it was they wanted to do, but also didn't burn them out, make them overwork.
This is a very like grounded and practical outlook on this that is nice. I'm appreciating right now because like this has kind of been somewhat of like a nebulous process. It's kind of hard.
Mhm.
Like I'm not like, just because like even doing internships, being in school, like I don't have a whole lot of like practical experience with this industry or how it works or what's going on in it. So like this is probably like one of the most like just kind of straightforward conversations about options and ways things could go that I've had the opportunity to have. Um, so I mean, do you have any like general advice about graduate school stuff, like unrelated to what subject, just kind of like things
I
to
would
look
just
out for?
make sure that you're it's something you're truly interested in. I just think you learn more, you're more dedicated, more self-regulated. Uh, if it's something you really want to do, you know it. Then find the right program that fits one. I mean, what you need, whatever it is you're looking for, in a sense of if you work, you need to work, so you need classes to be around this time. I think that if the school is an accredited school, it's great. You know, I think nowadays, unless you're graduating from somewhere like John Hopkins, or, you know what I'm saying, the school may not matter. When I say it doesn't matter, it has to be accredited school. It has to be, most schools that are accredited like that, they make sure they're hiring good professors. Also, if you can find a program where the professors are actually doing some of the work themselves, not just teaching, that's great. It's not always. Sometimes they'll even advertise. 40% of our professors, that type of thing. And then surround yourself. I think most professionals are more open than what people think. If you can reach out to people and you say, hey, I'm Nick and I'm about to go on this journey, and if I ever have a question, would it be okay for me to call on you, reach out just to kind of see what you think? So maybe if you find 3 to 5 people like that, even if it's just 3, that you can bounce things off of, that's always a good thing.
Would you like to be my first?
Sure, I don't mind.
Cool.
It's not the first. I mean, I've given that advice when I learned it myself. Actually, we had to do a project when I was in grad school to create a board of advisors for yourself. So treat yourself like a company, so to speak. Create a board of advisors, and then call on those people. And it can change as you establish yourself, but it's always good to have.
That's a good exercise. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's
Um,
basically that in a nutshell. As far as outside of academic, outside of the therapeutic and other questions, but just a general way to approach and hopefully mindset you have as you start the journey.
any like pitfalls or like things to avoid or things to do that you might not
think
think of as far as like the application process goes?
Application process.
Yeah.
Just be prepared to, most people want a writing sample. Most people sometimes want to see you in a group interviews, see how you interact with people. So the application process really is, it's not, and then understand too, schools can only take a certain number. So if you're not chosen, I mean you weren't good enough. Maybe they were over a number.
Yeah, Vandy takes like 4 for every 300.
You being a guy, it's a good thing. Most of the people in this field are female.
That's fair.
When you go to school, you'll see most of your classmates be women.
That's already kind of been the thing. Honestly. Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I noticed that actually almost immediately. I was like, huh.
Yeah, and so that's a good thing. I think another pitfall is too, you have to really be careful. You can listen to people when they have negative things to say, but you have to say, okay, that's their experience. Mine might be different. Because sometimes people will have negative things to say about this field, even from like ticket insurance or different things, but it's so many ways to approach this field. So they might have had a negative experience with the way they did it or experienced it, but that doesn't mean you'll do that. Or you can keep that, and you can follow the way, but your journey may be different.
Cool. Well, I think that's we're getting about to the end of the little time limit thingy here for the thing. But thank you so much for
you're welcome.
Doing the interview. And let's see, hold on. Yeah. Really appreciate it. I really do. That was a lot of really useful, helpful information.
No problem. If you need anything else, let me know.